Let's talk about the machine. Not the one you clock in for, not the one humming in your pocket, feeding you endless distractions. No, I'm talking about the real machine. The interlocking gears of oppression that sustain the ruling class. You've been told that capitalism, racism, patriarchy, and gender oppression are separate issues, that inequality is just some unfortunate side effect of an otherwise neutral system. But that's a lie. Intersectionality isn't just an academic term. It's systems thinking applied to power. It's the recognition that no single oppression exists in isolation. They reinforce each other, like a network of gears, each turning the next, designed, engineered, and maintained to keep power exactly where it is. They tell you that if you just work harder, if you just want it enough, you'll make it, that poverty is a personal failure, that oppression is just unlucky circumstance. But let's be clear. Systems create outcomes. A system that produces poverty, that keeps entire demographics trapped in cycles of economic despair, that's not a malfunction. That's the purpose. The American dream was always a carrot on a stick. The bootstrap myth is a distraction, a way to keep the gears of oppression turning while convincing the people trapped inside them it's their own fault. Why do economic struggles always seem to disproportionately impact people of color? Why does generational wealth accumulate in white hands while others are left fighting over scraps? Because systemic racism isn't a bug. It's a feature. Capitalism was never neutral. It was built on stolen land, fueled by stolen labor, and maintained by systems of racial hierarchy that justify continued exploitation. Slavery wasn't an anomaly. It was the original business model. And when slavery became politically inconvenient, the system adapted. Black codes, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration, new names, same machinery. And every time the ruling class convinced the white working class that their real enemy wasn't the elites profiting off their labor, but their fellow workers. That's how the machine keeps running, through division. Now, let's talk about gender. If capitalism runs on cheap labor, then patriarchy is its unpaid labor department. Who raises the next generation of workers? Who takes care of the elderly, the sick, the disabled, often for no pay at all? Who is expected to absorb the unpaid emotional and domestic labor that keeps households functional? Women, particularly women of color. That's not some accident of history. That's capitalism optimizing its profit margins. Why pay for something when you can make it an expectation? And when women started demanding autonomy over their bodies, their wages, their futures, what did the system do? It adapted. It monetized feminism, sold girl boss capitalism as liberation, all while stripping away reproductive rights and gutting social safety nets. This web of oppression extends beyond the categories of race and gender. Let's talk about the LGBTQ plus community. The system doesn't just exclude them, it actively exploits their marginalization. The historical invisibility of LGBTQ plus people is not an accident. The repression of queer identities has always been essential to keeping the gender binary intact. It's no coincidence that capitalism thrives on rigid categories, keeping the economic roles of men and women locked into distinct roles. Those who deviate from the system's expectations, like LGBTQ plus individuals, are seen as a threat to the establishment's control. At the same time, LGBTQ plus people are often used as a scapegoat in the culture wars, distracting the working class from the real enemies, the oligarchs. Instead of uniting against the real system of power, they're divided over identity politics that the system engineers to keep them distracted, to keep them fighting among themselves. Every one of these gears, racism, capitalism, patriarchy, gender oppression, feeds into the next. The less economic stability a community has, the more vulnerable to police violence. The more women are kept financially dependent, the more control the system has over their bodies. The more marginalized groups are turned against each other, the less likely they are to rise together. It's all by design. This is the realization that breaks the illusion. Oppression isn't a list of separate issues to tackle one by one. It's a web, a self-reinforcing system that maintains power by keeping the powerless divided. But here's the critical point. This isn't a broken system. It's a system working exactly as designed. The system isn't malfunctioning. It's doing what it's supposed to. And as long as we continue to approach these issues thinking that the system is broken and just needs a little tweak here or there, we'll keep spinning our wheels. We need people who understand that this system is not designed to be fixed. It's designed to perpetuate itself, no matter the cost. It doesn't matter which party is in power, liberal, conservative, or anywhere in between, because the system has been set up to preserve itself, and no amount of tinkering will change that. We don't need a few reforms. We need a new system entirely.